Well, good evening, everybody. Now then, T1, hi there, and Mandy. I noticed right at the end of yesterday's video, there was people had said, that's a good question, T1. So I'm hoping that this is your question that, that you were posing yesterday. Is Zelna suggesting that Bobby had made explicit searches and created those folders for Teresa Halbach and Stephen Avery on the 31st of October, 05, when he says he was asleep? All I can do is offer my sort of opinion and what I think is the situation, and that is that Kathleen Zellner's expert, Mike Hunt, was able to establish that certain, obviously with the help of the Detective Veely CD, was able to determine that certain keywords were there, were used, and at certain times. But I don't know that we have specific details as to when certain files or folders were created. I think that on the 31st, the point is that Zellner's saying that when Bobby is maintaining that he was fast asleep up until 2:30, he was most certainly not. Could that have been when he was creating those folders? Quite possibly. But as far as I know, I don't know that we have any specific details as to Mike Veely's and Mike Hunt's, Veely and Hunt. As far as I know, it's a case of, let's say, that they got certainly activity on the computer to do with the images well before 31st, and then from then on. Anyway, sorry I couldn't be more helpful, and I'm sure there's other people out there that have got much more information. Oh yeah, there was definitely activity. Yes, definitely activity. That's that's one of the things that you can impeach Bobby on. He's trying to say that he's fast asleep when clearly not. And we know for a fact that at 11 o'clock he helped Steve put a battery in the van. For some reason, they wanted to make sure that the van was running. Not that that made any difference to selling it on Auto Trader, but maybe the fact that they've committed to putting the car in Auto Trader made them decide, Steve in particular, that he doesn't want to get Barb to pay money to put an advert in Auto Trader for a car that doesn't run. And we hear that they fitted a battery in the van, Bobby and Steve, at around about 11 o'clock. And I've had that confirmed by Carla. Although I wondered if they'd got one of those trolley batteries on a trolley that you used to jump start. She wasn't sure what they had at the time. Anyway, well, good evening, everybody. T1, yes. I hope you're enjoying your spanner. Hopefully, we'll have a few offensive guilters turn up that you can use your spanner on. That would be good, wouldn't it, T1? And Mandy and Iced Coffee and I Don't Recall and Alice, hi. Have I missed Shane? No, let's see. Mandy, T1, Shane, Alice, I Don't Recall, Iced Coffee. Excellent. Okay. Let's look at the next bit. Oh, before I go any further, I'll keep harping on about this, that book, Blind Injustice. absolutely brilliant. I have got up to page, I think it's 93, and there's a whole lot devoted to the difference between, as we know, circuit court judges and appellate court judges. And again, Mark Godse made some very, very interesting points about the difference there, and why, in his experience, local judges have been so poor, as we know, with Suck at This. As you can probably imagine, I did my usual. I sent an email inviting Mr. Godse, Professor Godse, on for a chat, which he has accepted, but not till the Christmas holidays, because he's snowed under. Very similar to the situation with Dr. Richard Leo, who had the same response. Yes, delighted to come on and talk, but we'll have to wait till the holidays because he's absolutely snowed under with work at the moment. Anyway, let's crack on with the next bit of the Zellner motion. As I say, I've got loads more things that I want to move on to. Although I realise that what we've looked at so far, this is now, I believe, part 12, episode 12. Let's look at this next bit then. Already at page 72. Ballistics. Dean Strang, in his affidavit on November the 16th, 27, admitted that he was ineffective in not having ballistics and trace experts regarding item FL. Trial defense counsel failed to hire a ballistics expert to rebut the state's expert testimony that Teresa's cause of death was the result of being shot into her skull with a .22 caliber bullet identified as item FL. Current post-conviction counsel's ballistics expert, Lucien Haig, I've come across many Lucians, Mr. Haig states in his affidavit that item FL shows no evidence of having been shot into a skull. Lucien explains that item FL, identified as a .22, I'm not too sure what LR stands for, was comprised of such soft metal that there would be detectable bone fragments embedded in the damaged bullet if it had been fired into Teresa's skull. So, Lucien, shouldn't have drunk it so fast. Lucien conducted experiments that demonstrate bone would have been embedded in the bullet if it was shot into bone. Because no bone fragments were identified in item FL during its Wisconsin State Crime Lab examination, it is Lucien's opinion that item FL was not fired into Teresa's skull. Trial defense counsel missed the opportunity to cross-examine Mr. Newhouse about the absence of any bone particles in his report. DNA expert regarding the quantities of DNA on the bonnet catch. Trial defense counsel failed to present a DNA expert at Steve's trial. Current post-conviction counsel retained DNA expert Dr. Reich a Harvard, Stanford educated molecular biologist. Dr. Reich has offered the following opinions, which refute the state's DNA evidence. According to Dr. Reich, it would take approximately 90 attempts at opening the RAV bonnet catch to deposit the amount of DNA recovered by the Wisconsin State Crime Lab. The lab identified 1.9 nanograms, or 30 microliters of a DNA solution at a concentration of 0.0616 nanograms per microliter of DNA on the bonnet catch. Dr. Reich reached this conclusion by conducting a series of experiments on an identical catch. Dr. Reich refutes the state's claim as having no scientific foundation that the hoodlatch DNA was deposited by sweat from Steve's hands. DNA expert regarding a groin swab. Trial Defense Counsel failed to investigate or raise the illegal seizure of 2 swabs from Steve on November the 9th, 2005, which could have been used to plant the DNA on the RAV4 hoodlatch. The facts surrounding the illegal seizure of the swabs are as follows. Steve was arrested on a felon in possession of a gun charge on November the 9th, 2005, and he was taken to the Aurora Medical Center where Nurse Fritsch took 2 swabs from him in the presence of Special Agents Bert and Ernie. After the swabs were taken, Bert and Ernie conferred and determined that the search warrant did not call for that type of exam. Mark immediately stopped Nurse Fritsch and the exam was concluded. According to Steve, Mark told Nurse Fritsch to give him the groin swabs, and Steve observed Mark walk to the examination room receptacle as if to discard the groin swabs, but Steve did not observe Mark deposit the groin swabs into the receptacle. Steve's claim that the groin swabs were not discarded is corroborated by the following highly suspicious facts. First, the nurse never charted on the forensic evidence sheet that she had even taken the swabs, even though she charted that she took buccal swabs from Steve. The nurse charting indicates that the only law enforcement officer present was Sergeant Tyson, but Special Agent Fassbender's report indicates that he met Mark at the examination and both of them were present in the room. It is beyond coincidence that it was Bert and Ernie who interrogated Brendan, a vulnerable, intellectually impaired teenager who is most likely on the autism spectrum. Well, Brendan, that makes 2 of us, because that's what my wife often says of me. They introduced the hoodlatch story in their March 1st, 2006 interrogation. Agent Fassbender asked Brendan, did he obviously he's got a bit of stammer. Go and look at the engine. Did he raise the hood at all or anything like that to do something to that car? On May 16th, 2006, when asked how he came up with the hood latch story, Brendan responded, "Just guessing." It is a very reasonable inference that Bert and Ernie were highly motivated to provide corroboration for the confession they created. Therefore, they ordered that the hood latch be swabbed for DNA evidence. On April 3rd, 2006, Bert and Ernie specifically directed Detective Hawkins and Sergeant Tyson to go into the storage shed where the RAV was located to swab the hood latch. Battery cables and interior and exterior door handles. At 19:37 hours, Sergeant Bill Tyson swabbed the hood latch. Detective Hawkins took photographs, including a photograph of the swab. It's amazing how they're so keen to take photographs of certain things. After Sergeant Tyson swabbed the hood latch, he gave the swab to Calumet County Sheriff's Department Deputy Hawkins for storage. The instructions Bert and Ernie gave Detective Hawkins and Sergeant Tyson revealed their illegal plan because they failed to request swabbing of the interior hood release lever and hood prop, which by necessity Stephen Avery would have handled when opening the hood to disconnect the battery cable. They knew Steve was never in the RAV4, so no additional swabbing was requested. On April 4th, 2006, Detective Hawkins signed the hood latch swab, property tag 9188, over to Weigert for transport to the Wisconsin State Crime Lab in Madison. When Mark arrived at the lab, he presented Wisconsin Department of Justice evidence transmittal form labeled M05/2467/27. Detective Hawkins' name was typed on the form as the submitting officer, which he was not. Then Weigert hand-printed Detective Hawkins' name on the form, again deliberately misidentifying Detective Hawkins as the submitting officer, which was a complete misrepresentation. Clearly, Mark switched the groin and hood latch swabs and fabricated the chain of custody documentation so that it would appear that Detective Hawkins submitted the hood latch swab to the state crime lab. Trial defense counsel failed to investigate all of the surrounding circumstances that led to the swabs being illegally taken from Steve and the chain of custody on the submission of the alleged hood latch swab to the state crime lab on April 4th, 2006. According to Dr. Reich, one way for forensic evidence to be planted is to simply relabel the swabs. Dr. Reich offers the opinion that a rubbed groin swab taken from the defendant was relabeled and thus became evidence from the hood latch. Trial defense counsel never considered the possibility that the groin swab was substituted for the hood latch swab because they failed to investigate the chain of custody involving the hood latch swab and the illegal seizure of the groin swab. Okay, I'm going to keep it really short because, as I say, I am running out of StreamYard time, and I suspect that Monday's chat with Dr. Siltman could be quite fun, with this both having tried to outdo one another as to how far into blind injustice we have managed to get. I suspect he's well ahead of me, but never mind. No, I really look forward to our Monday morning chats with Dr. Siltman and the one and only Mill Billy. And even last week we managed to get Mark to come and join us. So, well, you know, let's hope that we can have put together the same team on Monday. But I must admit, I am finding this absolutely fascinating. Reading through what Zellner has put together. You know, stuff like we've just read makes me wonder, you know, are Dean and Jerry aware of the kind of shenanigans, the gerrymandering, the sheer corruption that the you know, the prosecutors, the state prosecutors, are capable of? It seems to me that you know, they're going to have a hell of a job from now on, pulling the wool over Kathleen Zellner's eyes. Anyway, obviously not long now till the 31st. 15 years on. Anyway, I'd like to thank you all for once again for tuning in. Also, you know, as I say again, apologies for firing these videos at you so frequently. It's just that I really do want to get on to some more stuff to do with the judges, and just I've got a whole load of stuff ready to look at. Anyway, as I say, I'm really enjoying going through this motion by Zellner. I think it's fascinating. You know, the fact that, you know, these are the writings of Kathleen Zellner. You know, good friend of mine, DB Cooper, who comments a lot, said earlier today that apparently you can get Ken Kratz's book on a 30-day free trial. You know, thanks, DB, but no, I definitely, I will not be reading that pile of garbage. And you see the contrast between the kind of stuff that Ken Kratz writes and the quality of Kathleen Zellner and her advisors and what they put together and how they present. You know, because they've been doing it a long time, they've got a lot of experience in this case. Anyway, I've havered for long enough, and I'm going to say cheerio, and we'll catch you all again soon. Take care. Bye for now, and thanks for joining.